Alderman Lazara.
Yeah, he's not here tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is not my night.
He's
Okay.
absent.
Alderman Sorrentino.
Here.
Alderman Messina. Alderman Catalano.
Here.
Alderman Jacob.
Here.
Alderman Woods.
Here.
Alderman Roy Wesley.
Here.
Alderman Eugene Wesley. Alderman Sizmarsky.
Here. I declare a quorum. I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes for the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting, regular meeting, September 24th, 2015.
Second.
Any corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is report and recommendation, separation distance variation for 236 Oakwood Drive, case number 15-V7. I want to make a motion to approve that.
Second.
Any questions? Alderman Eugene Wesley.
I just said, there's no other garage on that property? I didn't drive over there.
No, that's
No
correct.
place to put it in the whole backyard? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yes, exactly. There's no existing garage on the property. Got a brief presentation I can run through if you need it.
No, I'm happy with planning and zoning. I mean, it's fine. I just want to make sure I didn't go out there today.
Yeah, and this.
Go ahead.
This is one of those cases in terms of a variance, you always look for whether there's a hardship or not. This property at 236 Oakwood has approximately 40% of the property is floodplain. So there's really only one location that a garage can be located. You know, in terms of hardships, this is a true hardship, as clear a case as you will come across.
Any more questions? Got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, hold on, Mayor? No, you have a second. Okay. And opposed? No, motion carries. Next is items to consider for future meetings. It's the annexation update, November 12th. Baxton presentation, November 12th. HR Green Clock Tower, November 12th. Dumpster enclosures, November 12th. Oh. And lot coverage, December 10th. And business license inspection program, that's December 10th. And additional city signage bid. That's the date to be determined. Any other, anybody else? Nope. Then I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We adjourn.
Sorry, Chief. Sorry.
I'll call order the Public Health and Safety Committee, make the minute taker, the same people are present. Okay. Review the liquor code. Oh, I need a motion for the minutes for October
I'll make the
8th.
motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Report and recommendation for revised liquor code. Chief, I want to thank you for getting this done pretty quick, so. I want to just highlight what was changed in there?
Yeah, I guess I'll just start out by saying that there was several recommendations from different elected officials and things that we knew that kind of needed to be cleaned up from the liquor code. So we kind of tried to take all of those recommendations and suggestions or questions and put it into one document here and try and rewrite the whole chapter dealing with liquor. If you want me to, I'll just go through 1 through 10, and if there's comments on any of those or concurrence, you know, once we kind of decide where we want to go with this document, then we'll send it off to the attorney for, you know, final review, that anything that's been added has the right language. But we'll just start with number 1. There was just some minor grammatical changes that you saw that was probably really doesn't need to be discussed. Number 2 that came up, the fingerprinting fees. Currently, it costs us about $34.75 to send a fingerprint inquiry through the state and the FBI, which we do with any new liquor license background checks. So we'd like to increase the minimum of that to $35.
Chief, So why don't we raise it to like 50? So that's our cost, right, that we have to pay them? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Woods.
Let me raise my hand, please recognize.
Go ahead, Mr. Woods.
Why wouldn't we want to raise that to like $50 to cover some of the cost of staff to put that together too? Or,
Mr. Vesta.
I wouldn't be opposed to that. I wanted to make sure we covered our outside fees, part of the liquor license fee. I didn't know if that was intended to go towards some of the background check, but, you know, certainly you could up it to $50 or $100 to cover some of the actually not overtime, it's staff time, you know, regular hours
Right, I
to
mean, I
do
would
this
think-
background check, so.
based on the verbiage that you had, that there's quite a bit of time you guys put in there, so.
Okay.
There is, so I'd be comfortable,
So, do you want to make a motion to,
I'd make a motion to raise it to, I was thinking $75, but maybe 100. I'm kind of looking for input on what that number kind of is. I mean, I know that we don't want to make it more than what our expense is. It's not to make money, but we certainly don't want to, we want to
Mr.
cover the cost.
Mr. Vesta, what do you recommend?
I would think by the time we get the application, we review it, we run them through all of our databases that we do. We sit down with each applicant and have an interview with them. We talk about their past history and being a manager of a place that serves liquor, how they would handle problems. Just, you know, kind of get an overall feel. We do spend several hours on it. You know, I would think at a minimum, even $100 fee would cover the fingerprint fees, a couple hours, you know, 2-3 hours of work, and, you know, that would probably be adequate to, it would just be added on as a background investigation fee, if you wanted to do that.
Okay, any other questions on it?
No,
He,
I'll
Art made a
second it.
motion. Mike
Right,
seconded
but
it.
there was no dollar.
100.
Oh.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to make it $100.
So you're
Okay.
changing your motion
I'm
to a
changing
100,
my motion
and you're
to $100.
agreeing to the change. Any questions? All right, so there's a motion on the floor to raise it to $100. I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Oppose? Motion carry. So that will be one that you will make a change for $100.
Yes.
Okay, continue.
Moving on to Bassett training, which is beverage, alcohol, servers and sellers, education, basically people that are going to serve alcohol. We've had a city code, city ordinance for quite a while that in a place that's serving alcohol, they have to have a manager or employee on duty at all times that's Bassett certified. We do a lot of classes here, 3 to 4 times a year for businesses in town. Right now, by city code, and we were actually one of the first ones to have it, but not every employee is required to. They have to just have basically a supervisor or manager that's required. New state law has passed that by July 1st of 2017, right now it's already in Cook County. Next year, by county size, it'll be in DuPage County. People are going to have that. What becomes problematic is if someone hires a new person, or, you know, they have turnover, is getting all of them before us on a Saturday at a certain amount of time. The business has to pay the employee to come in for a 4 to 5 hour class with us. We have to pay overtime for our people to teach that class, and we charge a $50 fee to each person attending that class. Sometimes we pay for all of our instruction, sometimes we don't. The problem is now with it going statewide that everyone's going to have to be certified, there are some options for online training out there. And we would be comfortable with either for the initial certification or every 2 renewals that they have to do every 3 years, that they have to come to us once every maybe 6 years, but they're allowed to do the online initial license and renewal. But just theoretically, you know, you might have a place that hires 30 new employees in a year with turnover, maybe 10, whatever it is, trying to get them into the classes can be problematic. We want them to be certified in serving alcohol as soon as possible. So I wrote in some of the language of the new act, but right now, by our city ordinance, they really are not allowed to do it online. They have to come appear before us for that server education training. So we would be comfortable with, just logistic-wise, allowing them to do some of these online classes, which are certified by the state. You know, it's not just a half-hour thing that they have to go through.
So my question on that, on the online, is that our online course, or is that the state online course they put together, that they have to take?
It's actually a state-approved online course. There's a couple providers out there, but it really seems to be the way to go. If we want to add a new instructor to be certified as a Bassett instructor, that costs several $100s just for us to
Right.
add someone as an instructor to go to one of those classes, so.
Okay, and then whoever's got the Bassett training over there, do they print out a certificate that they completed online?
That's correct, and what we'd actually like to see is when they either apply for an initial liquor license or their renewal every year, before they're issued their renewal, they have to turn in a certification form to us that these are their employees, this is their Bassett card number, and then we can go online and look up and make sure they're Bassett certified. And then what we would say is, along with, we do compliance checks throughout the year to verify that they're not selling to minors, we would also ask to check that their servers are Bassett certified. We always give bars a heads up before we're gonna do any type of compliance check, and it wouldn't be any different there, but I think we need to have them certify that all their people are, and outline the law to them that you guys know you need to be certified, and then allow us to go ahead and check that. But I would say they have to fill out that form before they get their liquor license renewed every year. It really shouldn't take them long, but it's important that we know that all their employees are certified.
Mayor, please?
Chief, regarding new employees, so let's say we just had our class 2 weeks ago, and somewhere in the area the state had theirs, and the next one is down in Champaign, and they hire a new employee, and the next one around here isn't for a month. They have to have it right away, correct? So that's when they have the option to the online, is that,
With the,
or is there a grace period when you hire?
there's a grace period when you get hired. I believe it's 90 days or whatever. But right now, our current ordinance just covers that they have to have an employee on duty at all times, that not all of their employees have to be Bassett certified.
Right, but, so our language would mirror the state's then, they would have that 90 days, because you just said 3 or 4 times a year, so that's every 3 months, we're having one. And that's all part of the license, it's not an extra fee, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we would
Because-
mirror exactly what the state's looking to do, because we kind of went on our own before to require this Bassett training. Now that the state has passed it statewide, we're comfortable just following the state guidelines.
Well, I'm just thinking, the employer, all of a sudden, he hires somebody, and let's face it, holiday time's coming up, they get busier, they might put on a few extra people, all of a sudden, well, the closest thing is, or they can do online, and we have that.
Right now, there's no online in our code. This would allow for online
Right.
training,
Okay,
and
so
it's
just-
certified by the state, so at least they're getting the training,
Okay, right, we just don't want to make this, okay, got it.
And what employers are facing is trying to get several of their employees here on a Saturday morning or whenever the class is offered. It
Right.
causes problems for them too. So we're trying to make it easy for them, but also make sure that they're in compliance, so.
Buddy?
Chief, I just was wondering with this new state law, how often do they have to renew their Bassett training?
Every 3
Every
years.
3 years? Are there continuing education credits that are mandated as part of their renewal during
No.
the 3 years?
It's my understanding they just have to go through once every 3 years, go through that class.
The
and-
same class?
Correct.
Mr. Jacob?
Chief, how do we know if they do get new employees? I mean, it's kind of like the mayor said, I mean, they have 10 employees and 2 leave and they hire 2. I mean, it's not like we're going to the bar every month to check and see if the same people are there.
And I think how we would handle that is annually, they certify who their employees are and who has Bassett training along with the Bassett card number. Let's say we do a compliance check 6 months down the road. If they have an employee that was hired a month prior and they still, they would be fine. But if we run into 2 employees they're serving that have worked there for a year and they never put them on the certification form, or they've been there for 4 or 5 months and they still didn't send them through the online training, which is, it's almost free, it's dirt cheap online, then, they could be held accountable for that. But we'd make it very clear every year with their renewals, before they can even get their liquor license, a sheet saying this is the law, and they get notified by the state too, because they have to have a state liquor license. It's not just Wooddale that gives them a liquor license. So they get multiple notifications. We hand deliver liquor licenses to them. Part of that would be the certification form that they have to fill out before they get that their people are trained.
Mr. Police, are you done with? Okay. Mr. Police.
You just talked about compliance checks and whatnot. So you send in, let's say they fail or they pass, but they do not serve the minor, but then somebody asks, okay, what's your Bassett number? And they don't have one, and they've been, is that, how are we gonna treat that? I mean,
It's a
so we're clear on how the fines and structures, so we know what's going on here. Is it gonna be treated as serving a minor, or what's the deal?
No, it wouldn't be treated as serving a minor. What it would be treated as a violation, and I talk about the fine structure later, but if it was up to $50, it'd be a $50 ticket that they would get for a first-time offender. The employee would have to handle that ticket through the court system. It's actually a local arrest ticket. It doesn't go to DuPage County, it goes to the local traffic court. And then as the liquor commissioner, then you would be provided with a report, and then they would have to answer as part of their liquor license for why, the owner, why they didn't have all their employees Bassett certified.
Well, I know if they serve a minor, the fee's not gonna be $50.
No. And your authority in that statute is after a hearing, up to $1,000 for the first offense. I believe it goes to $1,500 after the second offense.
Right.
Plus you have the ability to suspend or revoke based on history, so. But the initial ticket that the employee that's not in compliance gets, just like the employee that doesn't, or that serves a minor, that's separate from the liquor license issue.
So I just wanna make sure we're clear on all that stuff.
Okay, on a follow-up to his follow-up. So if we go in and do a compliance check, and they don't serve, and part of our compliance checks is gonna be part of checking Bassett training. What if there's no one in that place has a Bassett training certificate on file there? Is that considered violating selling alcohol? Say the manager's off or called in sick, but they leaving it up to the backup manager that don't have a Bassett training.
So in essence, they would be in violation of the Bassett ordinance. They would not be in the Bassett state law. They wouldn't be in violation of selling to a minor or not being allowed to sell liquor. It just says they need to be Bassett trained. So the violation would be for a Bassett violation, not a, serving to a 22-year-old or something like that.
So what I'm trying to say here, so if you go in there and none of them Bassett trained, do you have authority to shut down selling liquor at that day? Or does that come under the mayor? Because if none of them are Bassett trained, to my point of view, it's violating selling alcohol regardless.
There's a provision in the code that the mayor can immediately revoke a license for public, pending a hearing eventually for the public safety. I don't know if that would rise to it, and I would probably seek the city attorney's guidance before we did that. Before we actually said, you can't sell any more liquor at this point, because the Bassett educates them on when to not overserve, how to check IDs, all that stuff. It doesn't prohibit them from selling alcohol, so. I would just seek attorney guidance before we decided on that.
Okay, I'm just bringing it up because I have to be Bassett trained in my store, so. Tony?
And that fee's $50 if they in violation?
What that would be, two parts to it. An employee has to be Bassett trained. The minimum fee would be a $50 fee. The provisions against the bar owner for allowing an employee to serve without a liquor license could be up to $1,000, up to $1,500 on a second offense, or license or revocation of their
As
license.
far as that fee, can we increase that fee? Can we double it to 100?
What fee is that?
To $50,
For what? The Bassett training?
yeah.
Well, to tell you the truth.
Well, that's a fine if they don't
Well,
have
the
it.
point is, they could go online and do it for half the cost. I mean, and I'll be totally honest with you, if I had a business, and then I don't have to make appointment, come over to the police department to do it, I'll tell you one thing, I would send all my employees online, as long as they get a printout certificate. I don't care, it's going, it's actually going to help the police department that don't have to pay the overtime to have a guy come in and do a basket training.
And I
it
think
helps in the long run, if they hire someone during the season, they don't have to.
and I think the difference here is the fine versus the registration fee for Bassett.
Right, the fine.
The minimum fine would be 50. It's at 25 right now. You know, that was written over, I think, almost 30 years ago was the $25 fine. It doesn't really apply. If it goes to court, a judge can issue up to $500 for that violation. So what we do with most of those is just make them must appears, and then the city attorney that represents us in traffic court, Mr. Belmonte, he goes before the judge, and then if the person has an attorney, they, you know, either come to a plea deal or whatever it is. So generally, it's not even gonna be $50, but 25 is really nothing. I would at least start at 50. You know, if you wanted to start at more of a minimum, that's fine too. But it will go to court, and then there'll be a decision made in court.
Okay.
Mr. Jacob?
There's a line in here that talks about the Bassett trading class by a certain date based upon county population. So is this ever change? Does this change often then, or is there a set date or?
The set date for our county is July 1st of 2017. So what would happen now is our current ordinance that says you have to do it and have at least one employee working. What we would do is notify the bar owners that this is changing, and then by July 1st of 2017, all of their employees. So they would still have 8 months to come into compliance with this before they got their new liquor license. The ones that currently have liquor licenses, it's not like they have to go out in a month and train everyone online, and they would still have these 8 months, which is why we're trying to get ahead of it and do it now, so they have some time to come into compliance. They still would be held to the fact that they have to have someone on duty up until July 1st that still has that, so.
Okay. Any other questions? So, we comfortable with that? Okay.
The next one, classifications. That definitely needed some cleanup. We had a couple. The first one I guess I'll talk about is the catering license. The catering license, when it was written, I'm not familiar exactly why it was written, but when it was written, there was a particular place that was looking for that type of license, and they had a Class V license at that time. The caterer's license currently says you have to have a class, I don't remember, it's
RV or M.
PV or R, I think. There was 3 classifications of license that it would apply to. So we would be comfortable with taking out the requirement of any certain type of license, but maybe council would want to see something along the lines of they must possess an accompanying liquor license of some type, unless you want to do it just having caterers in town that could do that. The problem you run into with that is someone could have a liquor or a catering license, a business out of their house that could be having a liquor license out of their house too. I don't know what council's comfortable with, so.
All right, Mr. Woods, you were first.
Yeah, I'm more comfortable having it linked to a business, a regular brick and mortar place. I mean, theoretically, you go in the industrial section and open up 50 catering places with nobody to oversee kitchens or health or distribution or anything else. I'm okay. We don't have to make the license expensive, and I think that that's why they kept it minimal, that you had to have another license. And the second part of that is that the license that they have should be distribution-wise equal to, or use-wise equal to the catering license, meaning the catering license was beer, wine, alcohol, and some of the other licenses were just beer, wine, and you could still get a catering license that would be upping your ability to sell. So they should be more equal or concurrent, whatever terminology.
So what you're suggesting is they would possess a liquor license, an accompanying liquor license prior to getting the caterer's license, and at a consumption level equal to.
Correct.
And some wording there to say, for example, if they can only do beer and wine, they can only cater beer and wine till.
Correct.
Mayor, please.
Regarding the catering in the industrial park, I mean, number one, they'd have to get a business license from us. And we would notify the health department, right? So they'd have to comply with the health department. Is that correct?
No, that ain't ours.
I don't know. Mr. Cage is here.
Yeah,
I'm
ask
just
him.
curious.
I
I'm
don't
just
think you
curious.
have to notify them. I
No?
think it's their responsibility to notify the health department. Ask him. Do we notify the
I
health
don't know.
department,
Do you know it?
Mr. Kate?
Yeah, typically with food establishments, we will notify the DuPage County Health Department.
Okay. So that answer that question, yeah.
Well, because, you know, big catering company, I mean, that's all they do. They don't have the restaurant. They want to move into in the industrial park. Why wouldn't we let them move in? But naturally, the fee wouldn't be $500, I understand.
Right,
that.
but I think to that point, and I understand what you're saying, is that
Mr.
we make
Woods.
them buy a regular license too, so that the dollars are equal anyway. So you would always have to purchase 2 licenses.
Well, they would buy
Mr. Mayor,
Right, no, I understand. Okay, so
Sorry, Chairman.
he buys a Class R, and then he has a catering license, but he's only a catering company specifically. I mean, like, for instance, there's a couple of catering, I don't know if we should mention their names. I've seen them, and they're strictly catering companies.
I can think of one that moved out of town recently that was up in the industrial park for quite a while. They never had a caterer's license. We could check with the attorney if,
But I'm just, because, you know, so they buy the beer and wine, or they want everything, the full alcohol. But they're strictly a caterer, they're not a brick and mortar, I mean. I don't care how we work it out, as long as, you know, number one, I don't want to limit others, you know, catering companies.
my thing is they still gotta come to city council for a liquor license regardless, because there's none available.
But I understand it, but, so they buy the Class R to do everything, and then they gotta buy the Class CA as well.
Right,
Right,
it's
that's
like an
fair.
add-on.
Mr. Woods,
Chairman, I had my hand up. Yes, or we'd have to create
A separate-
different classifications of catering licenses then.
could do that too. Mayor, police.
Well, that was gonna be my next thing. So if it's just a catering company, this is what you have. But if you've got your brick and mortar right in town, and they wanna do catering, that's a separate, because they wanna deliver, because I can see where this might go. You might start having some of the other restaurants that deliver pizzas, all of a sudden wanna deliver beer and wine. That would be an extra fee, correct?
Mhm.
I think we're on the same.
well,
Breakfast?
I mean, what I could probably do, we could check with the attorney to say, can we have a catering license that's a certain amount, if that's solely what you're doing? Or a catering license, if you already hold a companion license, it would be a lower fee than just a standalone catering license. We could, either you have 2 different classes, or you have 2 different fee structures under the one class. We could do that probably.
Mr. Woods.
Yeah, I was, in the effort of keeping it simple, so that it's, you know, another privilege, the license is a privilege, so this is like a secondary privilege add-on for those people that want to do catering too. Just to, otherwise, we got to get into the different classes and stuff like that. I mean, maybe that works better.
Mr. Jacob.
I was just gonna say, I kind of agreed with the mayor, and what you originally said, have 2, one for just a caterer, and then one for a caterer and a restaurant.
Sonny?
You know, this could be a moot point, all of this conversation, because generally speaking, from my experience, catering companies charge an exorbitant amount of money if they have to sell liquor too. So most people, they'll have the food catered and provide their own liquor, and maybe from the catering company, hire a bartender. So, you know, we may be thinking this a little too much right now. Because catering companies are generally food orientated, not alcohol.
But we have one now in town that has a liquor license to go to parties right now. So we're just trying to clean this up a little bit. Mayor, please.
Well, going along with that, basically, just strictly those catering companies, they're gonna do a lot of work in the industrial parks. So a lot of those industrial parks really don't, unless they're gonna go out and bring their own booze, they generally just order it in. That's why the catering company would need the liquor license. Now, they may not even want it, I mean, they might just wanna do food and not deal with the license.
So my sense is up here is, correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, we're looking at doing a separate liquor license for catering. Is that the impression I'm getting?
Not unless you own a business.
I mean, if you have a catering business in town, are we looking to a liquor license? Or the one that has a business, it stays at, but we create a new liquor license just for catering?
Yeah, just for catering. If he's already got a business and a license, you should
It's just a lower fee.
So I'm
That's what
sorry.
I'm saying, lower fee. If they got a business, and they got a catering business in here too, they get a lower fee. If you have a catering, it's a different classification. Is that what I'm hearing?
Catering only.
Catering only? I mean, I just want to sense council. Chief Westley.
And my guess would be, because we talked with the attorney about fees, grandfathering in people at old fees, if there was new fees, we'd probably have to do a separate, rather than having two CA license structures, we'd write a separate class, which would be like a CO, which is catering only,
Right.
and then you'd have that one be the 2,500 and 1,500, or whatever that fee would be.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
let's get sense of it. I just want to make sure everyone's on board with that change. So, Mike?
Well, what about the ones that fall under their caterers, but the people bring in their own liquor? We've had,
We can't control that.
No, that's a different subject.
We'll go on.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Okay.
yeah,
So,
that's what I'm talking, yeah.
so you're in favor of Art?
I'm in favor of art.
No.
We need a motion, really, we should make a
I'm
motion.
making a motion, I'm in favor of art.
I'll make, go
Do
ahead.
do you know what, the sense I'm
Make the
getting,
motion, whatever.
the sense I'm getting is that you're looking to establish a CO license for catering only with the fine structure of 2,500 and 1,500, and the current CA license, which is for businesses that also have a companion liquor license, not necessarily making it a certain license, but it will match the classification of their current license.
That's my motion.
Okay.
Second.
Question, Mr. Woods?
So within that CO license, is that gonna be beer, wine, spirits?
That was my next question.
Or are we gonna have one that, because I know a lot of catering places only do beer and wine and don't have spirits. So is that, since we're on that's why I was trying to make it simpler, that if you had a regular license, you could add a catering license, because it's all, part of it's about control, part of it's about the fee. You don't want to give the catering license away for $200. You'd have, every caterer in the world will move here. Not that's necessarily a bad thing, but, it certainly gets into then, since there's different classifications of regular liquor licenses, would it not make sense to do the same, so. Catering only, all catering only, beer, wine, whatever.
So do we do
Tier structure.
I got
beer, wine separate?
That's why I was pushing to
License
just leave it kind of the
and-
way it is now.
Beer, wine, and spirits.
And then we do another one, beer, wine, and
And
spirits?
the caterer really is buying a liquor license, because that's what this whole discussion's
Okay.
about. And the add-on of just being a caterer for the minimal fee of $200, that kind of covers.
But matches their current
Right, and that
liquor fee.
CA would match
whatever they hit.
whatever they hit as a license. If they were a restaurant or a beer wine or a bowling alley, let's say the bowling alley decided to do catering and opened up a banquet hall or something. I mean, so this way it would just move up and down with whatever the license was. That just seemed to
Okay,
make it a little easier, at least to me.
so, We have a motion, we had a second, so now we're going,
Yeah.
is that,
I think it needs to be amended based on what Mr. Woods just said.
Yeah, I mean,
all right, so
I could,
who,
yeah.
I made a motion. Mike, you second it? So I'm willing to strike my motion. Are you willing?
Amend
Amend the motion? Okay.
So just basically leave
I
it
want
as it is.
to leave it as is, but we're going to add more in.
We don't even need a motion.
You
Because
just
we're
said we
leaving
need
it
a
the
motion
same.
there.
No, because we're not changing anything, you're leaving it as is.
We add in.
No, we're adding the
Well-
seniors
Add
part.
in.
No.
We're taking out the reference that they have to have a Class R, V, or M license, so we'd just add wording, they must possess another valid liquor license, and the
Correct.
rights of that license will be transferred to the catering license.
Correct.
Right.
All right.
But we also, in that motion, there's also that we adding a catering license.
No,
I thought we took that out.
Catering only.
Okay, fine.
no, we're not.
That's amended motion. You agree?
Mhm.
Do a roll call
You got
vote
it,
on
Greg?
this. Do a roll call vote on this.
Wait, it's,
The tapes are.
I'm gonna read the motion back so everybody understands.
Eileen, read the motion back, please.
Okay.
Thank you, that's what I thought.
That's why I wanted to.
So, could I, do you want me
Mr.
to?
Vest-
Yes,
The motion would be to remove the restriction that the caterer's license needs a Class R, V, or M license, and instead, they must have a current city liquor license, and the selling rights are the same as the other occupied liquor license. Right? The rights of types of alcohol to sell.
Correct.
Correct.
Sounds good to me. You got that?
Yes.
Okay.
Alderman,
Wait.
Oh.
There's a motion, there's a second. Mr. Jacob, you have a question?
Well, what happened to the caterer only? We're not gonna have
We
that?
aren't,
Don't change it, she has it down.
we aren't doing anything with it. Mayor,
Yeah.
please.
Basically, so you buy the R license, okay? Even if they are catering only, they buy the R license, and then they're also gonna get the CA license. They're gonna get them both. That's what, so instead of creating a separate class, so if they buy the one that's just beer and wine, they just get beer and wine. If they get the one beer, wine, and spirits, then that's the one they buy. And they also buy the catering license with it. So it really, actually would cost them more money.
Right.
Even if they're catering only.
So there's a motion, there's a second. Do a roll call, please.
Alderman Sorrentino?
Yes.
Alderman Catalano?
Yes.
Alderman Jacob?
Yes.
Alderman Woods?
Yes.
Alderman Roy Wesley?
Yes.
Alderman Eugene Wesley?
Yes.
Alderman Sizmarsky?
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. Mr. Vesta, do you want to carry on?
Sure. The next part regarding the classes of license was dealing with classes M and V. Currently, there's no businesses that hold these licenses. They both referred to some type of seating minimum restrictions, and I know that was written back in either the 90s or the early 2000s, and I'm not sure exactly who that was written for or what purpose it was written for. So the question is, first, do we want to remove any seating restrictions? And then my thought was to have a Class M, which is for meals, which allows all alcohol, and an MR, so a meals restricted, that only allows beer and wine. So we have to decide, do we want to take out the seating restrictions or leave them, and then can we just call them M and MR instead of the other codes?
Mr. Jacob?
I would be in favor of taking the seating restriction out.
Mayor, please.
Chief, so you don't really ever find out why they had the seating restriction for, oh, nobody knows, right?
They have a seat.
Do you have a follow-up?
No.
I have a question. I believe, I would assume the seating requirement was because anyone could clear a whole building out and get a liquor license, have a DJ or whatever, a concert in there and we selling alcohol. I'm not saying it's going to happen here, but.
That's with meals.
But that would be a Class A license, or, I'm sorry, like a class, like a bar license, not a Class A. That's my mistake. But that would be similar to what the bar license is that several of the bars in town have that don't serve any meals. So these makes them required to serve with meals. The most recent one we granted was actually the last two we granted, one was small that didn't have 50 seats, so they ended up getting a AR license, I believe, and the one that was given in the fall was also an AR license, or it was the license that allowed them to serve a glass of wine if a person isn't having a meal. So there's a full liquor with meals, or full liquor that they can also serve it with meals, or someone can have a drink without having a meal.
Okay. Mr. Woods?
Forget it.
Mayor, please.
Chief, okay, so let's say the one restaurant received the AR, and that was a $5,000 and a $1,500 renewal. The MR is $2,500 and a $1,500 renewal. It's basically the same, was the same thing, wasn't it? Or that was, the A is more considered a bar, but just because it was on premise, that's all that's what we gave them. I just want to clear.
Yeah, so the clarification is the A, if someone comes in and sits at a table, they don't have to order any food. They can just order drinks and sit there and eat drinks. So that's usually a higher fee license, which is kind of consistent with what most places are doing. If they just say, yeah, anyone that comes in has to order food, they can get a lot cheaper liquor license, but if they're caught serving, liquor without food, then they're in violation of their license.
Follow up, Mayor, please.
So the ones that might have the AR, we're gonna switch them to the MR, and it's basically the same renewal fee anyways, right? Is that what we're gonna do?
No,
Mr. Vest?
actually, the ones that are AR right now, I would say should stay at AR, because they're, like the ones that came to us last fall, they wanted to be able to sell a glass of wine if someone came in and didn't order a meal. So
okay.
I'm not
So
proposing
they-
change.
They get the option.
None of these changes are with anyone that has a current license.
Okay.
It just clarifies some of those licenses.
Okay. What's the class 0, 10 per year max? Is that the seating?
So that's for large outdoor events. We've had bars in town that have run large car shows at certain locations. We used to have one up north that would have an outdoor event once a year. They have to bring in a certain number of porta potties, depending on the number of people that they are. They have to have a full license in order to get that. And then the mayor, in his role as liquor commissioner, can issue O licenses to those businesses, but they can only apply for a certain number of year, certain number of those per year.
10 per year.
Yeah.
Right. Mayor, please.
Well, we're talking about the classifications, Chief. I know I brought this up to you a few days ago about the brewery. Say somebody wants to open up a restaurant and brew their own beer and whatnot. We don't have that anywhere in this code. So while we're doing this, shouldn't we, and I know we discussed maybe having one open if that was, but how could we handle that? Or otherwise you might have just somebody who's been brewing, 2 kegs a year out of his basement want to take the license. And I mean, I know you said you were going to talk to the attorney. So
Yeah,
I don't know if anything
and by state law, everyone in their house can brew a certain amount of beer or a certain amount of wine they could make. If you wanted to, while we're rewriting the code, I saw several examples out there of towns that have breweries in town that are over the state minimums for how much they can brew without having a liquor license. That's for sale. A home brewer still wouldn't get this license because they're not gonna be able to sell out of their home. So we could certainly create that class now and have it out there, and you could either have a license open, or you could have it at 0 licenses, and then if you find a business that wants to come in, the brewer's class is already there, and you could just say, we want to add 1 to this, rather than having to revisit this.
Mayor, please.
And the reason I bring it up is, I've seen it in the paper quite a few times in the past month. This brewery's opened up here, that brewery opened up there. They've got a restaurant. I think we kind of put our community development department at a disadvantage if if we don't have one in town, or the license that they can say, hey, I know we have that, you guys can come in, you know, provide whatever the stipulation it may be. That's why I think while we're doing this, we should at least create, and I don't know, to brew, do you need a specific license? I mean, or is it just, would that just be part of our liquor license? I don't know, I'm not, how we can do, I'm sure you have to talk to the attorney.
Yeah, and in the ones I reviewed, they specifically refer to making the beer on the premises
Right.
for distribution and sale. I think one of them was, I think it could be with meals or without meals. So we could certainly come up with one that would fit. Go ahead.
Mayor?
And, well, when it comes to these type of places, basically you go, you have the meal, you pick your favorite beer, whatever, they might have 10 different kinds, whatever. But some of them wanna, hey, you know what, I really like, I wanna take a 6-pack home. They should be able to sell also, and take it home. So, again, it's all legals. I would leave it up to you guys to draw something up that's correct.
Well, if council wants that, we'll write up a class, whatever we wanna call
MB
it.
or MB.
That'll be deal with brewery, and it would be in there as a potential license in the future.
You done there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we open one, just because we're already going through this now, instead of going back and do it again when we decide to do downtown area. And maybe somebody wants to come, we might as well put it in now and have it in here.
I would
Well-
second that if he makes the motion.
We have a second, but I have a follow-up. Are you saying to open the liquor license or have one?
Have one readily available in case someone wants to brew, have like a Ram Brewery move in, or,
But it,
you know.
So create the
So
class.
Create the class, right.
so we can have it, we don't have to go
Right.
through this whole thing
Right,
again.
right.
We don't have done, saying we're giving it out today, maybe it'll get done 6 years from now, maybe the first
Well, I
time,
agree,
but
but
we'll
when-
have it.
When you said open, I thought you were going to have one sitting out there.
No,
I
no,
don't want
no.
that. Okay,
No, just
So-
waiting,
all right.
create the class and
Create
put
the
it in
class.
now.
So the motion at first was to open a liquor license for that, right?
To create, that's what you.
We just, now it's a create.
I had said, maybe we have one open, but again, do we have one open and then, you know,
Right.
we have to have some kind of control on it.
Well, my question, I mean, while he's going and revising now, we might as well do it now and just get it over
Right,
with
no,
and
no.
have it in
I
there.
understand. I
Create.
just,
Create it,
one.
and it'll just
Right.
be in the
That's what I'm saying.
revision already.
all right. Mr. Woods?
I was gonna add that we could, create it just like the catering license, that they have to have a full alcohol license, and to be a brewer, of course, the brewer would be more money than the nominal fee for a catering. And within that classification, because another add-on to that is distilleries too, because that's a big push. So if we're gonna look at the classification, let's look at both of those, items, and I would just tag those as, you know, menu items that you can add to the liquor license, but just like we're doing everything else, everybody has to have a liquor license.
Mr. Jacobs? Go ahead.
This was a different topic.
Can I get this one off? Okay. Alderman Roy Wesley.
So we got a motion, we got a second. Could you tell me what it is now again? Eileen, because we're going back and forth here. I don't know if everyone actually knows anymore.
So to create the class for breweries, and then are you adding what Alderman Woods also
Distillery.
said?
Yeah.
Still,
For
making
distilleries, you
nothing.
want to say?
Yes. Yes, so I have to make sure the motion agrees. Are you in
I
agreement
asked
to
the
what?
motioner to.
Yes.
Seconder? Okay, so,
So, we're adding, is that the motion?
yes.
Well, the chief will bring it forward then, once he gets to the attorney.
Okay.
The classification we're at.
Are you following all this?
Yes,
Good.
And you want it as an add-on.
Right.
So someone that would get like a Class A that says authorizing sale of alcoholic liquor consumption on the premises and retail sale of packaged liquor, that would allow them to sell their wares, but it would be an add-on for a brewery or distillery that makes more than the state allows as just a hobby type
Absolutely
thing.
correct.
Okay,
Correct.
got it.
Mayor, please.
Sorry. So,
Who's on first?
Roy.
so when you go that way, chief, and this add-on, is that good, are we looking to, the addition be the extra 500 and 250, or, Art, I think that's what you were talking, basically
Well,
the same way as.
Mr. Woods.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The brewer, I mean, the fee for a brewery would be obviously more than the fee for a
Right.
catering license.
Right.
But the same concept, yes. I mean, we'll work out the details.
Right, okay.
Mayor, please.
No, that's all, I wanted to make sure we're on the same page, that's all.
Just one thing.
Mr. Woods.
Again, I was gonna bring in the fact that, because some breweries open as restaurant, brewery, packaged goods brewery, wine tasting, I mean, there's different, that would just make it easier for those people coming in, I think. That's it, I'm done,
Right.
for now.
We have a motion, we have a second. Roll call vote.
Alderman Sorrentino?
Yes.
Alderman Catalano?
Yes.
Alderman Jacob?
Yes.
Alderman Woods?
Yes.
Alderman Eugene Wesley?
Yes.
Alderman Sizmarsky?
Yes.
And Roy has that.
Roy left the building.
Okay.
Roy said yes.
Is it regarding the liquor ordinance? Okay. Go ahead.
Quick question for you, Chief. Do we have something that would cover, or where would something like the Linford Winery fall into? Where would something like that fall into? Do we have something like that?
No, we don't, I don't believe we have anything that would cover that at this point.
Mr. Jacob?
I mean, if we're gonna create a brewery one, I think, I mean, that's a possibility of about having a business wanting something like that in town as well at some point.
Sale and sample. Taste and sample. Taste and sample.
Mayor, please.
I don't know, maybe that can be like a combined or brewery, winery, I mean, just not to complicate and add many, I don't know.
Mr. Vesta?
How about I just get clarification from the attorney on what would cover those? And maybe it just be for things that are produced on the premise, and that covers everything.
It's fine.
And then we'll bring it back.
Mike?
Well, you do that like in a test, you do that other one, Wine With Me, where it's a tasting and a sale. So I don't know where that would fall in either, if that's just,
Because they're not brewing it there, or making the wine there,
That already
that would
falls.
fall under our,
Okay.
under one of our current ones.
Anyone else? Okay, continue.
Just wondering if everyone's fine with adding the language to the Class O that says if a liquor license holder has an event in their parking lot, they have to have a Class O license. I won't give specifics, but we had an incident with a bar in town that there was a question of, did they need a license for that? Because people were buying it inside and walking outside with it. We just want to make it clear that if people are consuming at an outdoor, whatever type of event it is in the parking lot, be it tournament, whatever it is, that, yes, that they need to have a Class O outdoor license. It's not expensive, we had an occasion where someone was doing that, and I don't think they had the appropriate license, but there was we just want to clarify that they should have a license, an outdoor license if they're gonna hold outdoor events.
I'm comfortable with that. Anyone else have anything?
I'm comfortable with that.
All right, that sounds good to me. Leave it as. Next
The
one.
next things is fees. Went through there, clarified all those, changed the MR to equal the Class M, that used to be a V. And then in the memo, you'll see I kind of did a summary of what other towns have, and I tried to find licenses that were as close to the same description as ours, because there was a request to look at, are we charging enough for our liquor fees? So I don't know what council's direction is on, do they think we're appropriate? We seem to be, we're not the lowest. We seem to be in the upper half of cost for liquor licenses, so.
Mr. Woods?
Well, I mean, we're not that far off, and when you look at what most people are charging, we have a higher first and year initial investment, so to speak,
Right.
and a lower renewal fee. If you really calculate the fees over, I think when I ran the numbers, like 2.25 years, it's kind of break even. at the third year, full third year, we're cheaper. And every year after that, we become cheaper and cheaper because their fees remain the same and then go up proportionately. So I think that we're good where we're at, and I like the fact that we have a higher initial entry point.
Any other? Tony?
Yeah, how come we didn't use Itasca in Bensonville?
There was a delay in getting their information.
Oh.
That's, we asked a lot of towns, and what we did is we grabbed what'd I get, 8 or 9 out of there? But yeah, some of them were a little later in getting the information back to us.
Okay, thanks.
That's the only reason.
All right, everyone's happy with that? All right. Go ahead, Mr. Vest.
Bassett training, we're just looking for the same thing for renewals as we are for initial licenses with that certification form to be filled out. We kind of talked about that. The next thing, insufficient funds. Wanted to make it completely clear in there, if someone writes a check for their liquor license and it bounces, that their license is immediately suspended until they give us a cashier's check to cover that. We did have that happen in the past. They did comply and they did stop selling during that time, but want to make it completely clear, so if it happens again, it's already written that, yes, you don't have a valid license because you wrote an insufficient check. That's all we're looking for on that.
I agree with that. Tony? Sonny?
Would it make it a lot easier if you just went with the certified check instead of a business and/or personal check? Then they're guaranteed the license. And it saves a lot of administrative chasing as well. Most licenses require a certified check anyhow, so I don't think it would be an inconvenience to the licensee. It would save us a little running around after the fact.
Doesn't matter to me, the
I
clerk's
would
office
recommend a
takes.
certified check.
Okay.
So are you looking to change that then? In this ordinance? I'm just
I'd
asking.
like to make a motion to change it to a certified check.
I'll second that.
All right, there's a motion, there's second. Questions? Lujo, please.
Chief, regarding that, a lot of our businesses just give us regular checks. Have we had a problem with this?
With one business, yes.
Only one
Yes.
out of,
The 20 or so licenses we have, yeah. Well, we actually have 30-some
30.
licenses total.
31.
Yeah.
Alderman Woods.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that question, how much of a problem it is, but if it's just no matter how many people it is, but in this particular case, it's only one person, shouldn't we kind of increase the paying threshold? Add a fine, or
There
if it's a
is.
second bounce check that, you're shut down for 3 days. Apparently if it's a consistent thing, whatever we're doing isn't working for that person.
Well, it was a one-time problem with that business, but there was some question at that point, well, can we say, well, you can't sell because the check didn't clear, as opposed to, so, we had to spend some time with the attorney to go, well, it's not completely spelled out, well, what if the check is bounced? Do they really have the license or do they not? They complied with our request to stop selling until they gave us certified funds, but we're just trying to avoid any questions that if they bounce a check, sorry, they can only pay by certified funds then, so.
All right. Mr. Jacob.
I would have to agree with Alderman Sorrentino and Catalano. If you want the liquor license, how hard is it to go to the bank and get a bank check? It's not, if you want the liquor license, it's not that difficult to get a bank check.
Well, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Do a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Sorrentino?
Yes.
Alderman Catalano?
Yes.
Alderman Jacob?
Yes.
Alderman Woods?
No.
Alderman Roy Wesley?
not here still.
Not here still, sorry. Okay. Alderman Eugene Wesley?
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski?
Yes.
Okay. So you're making that change?
Got it.
All right. Continue.
The next thing was the fine structure, where we had wanted the minimum fine to start out at $50. I was just trying to keep up with the times a little bit. I'm fine if that was a minimum 100, but it will go to court, and most likely they're gonna get a higher fine, but I'd hate a judge to go there and go, well, $25 you sold to a minor, it seems, not appropriate, but sometimes those things happen in court,
So
so
you're looking to raise it to 50?
at least 50.
Okay. I'll make that motion, raise it to 50.
Second.
Questions? Mr. Woods?
Could I raise it to 100?
You want?
I mean, it's a serious offense. I mean, we should be, $50 is nothing. I mean, that's a parking ticket.
Tony said that earlier. I thought
Right, I thought he did, so that's,
Okay.
so I would,
I'll rescind my motion to Hart. Secondary agree?
I agree.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns? Hey. Roll call, please.
Alderman Sorrentino?
Yes.
Alderman Catalano?
Yes.
Alderman Jacob?
Yes.
Alderman Woods?
yes.
Alderman Eugene Wesley?
Yes.
Alderman Sizmarsky?
Yes.
Motion carries. Anything else?
Last thing was, that I highlighted in the memo was the BYOB, the question of, can a restaurant allow a patron to bring in their own beer, wine, liquor, whatever it is? According to the city attorney in 5041B2, it says, "It shall be unlawful to consume or permit the consumption of alcoholic beverages in public restaurants and/or catering establishments not having a license for the sale thereof." So according to him, that prohibits BYOB at a restaurant or a catering location. I know there was some thoughts on some wording to maybe even clarify that more. I think Alderman Woods had a thought on that too.
Alderman Woods.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, or I think that adding a couple simple words like commercial space or party rooms to that would cover some of the issues that some of the council was concerned about.
So, Mayor, please. Mayor, please.
Yeah, actually, specifically, anybody who has to get a license, business license in town, is not allowed to have alcohol on their premise, BYOB or whatever. Because we've got, now I know you guys are gonna tell me about the state statute, but can ours be more stringent? Are we allowed to do that? And I understand some people would be grandfathered in, I got it. Want to make sure it never happens again.
Well, the one thing I thought of here when we were, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The one thing I thought about here when we were talking about that is we do have companies in town that have employee picnics and employee parties. They are allowed to, I'm talking in the industrial park. A company will shut down for a couple hours and they'll have an employee picnic where they serve beer to their employees, let's say. They're not a restaurant or a catering establishment, so they're allowed to do that by law. I know we had a auction company that was looking to move into town, and they wanted to offer some alcohol to patrons of theirs. Well, they couldn't really do that, but they could offer it to their employees. So if we do commercial space or party rooms, then some of those people could be in, I don't know if we do it by zoning area, or I'm not sure the best way to do that if you want to clarify it a little bit better.
So, here's my thought on it. Believe me, I know places have it right, but who's responsible if they come out there intoxicated? I mean, really, they brought the booze in themselves. Who, but it doesn't, will that be in an ordinance that the property owners is responsible if someone gets out there and hit a kid or get in an accident, and they were drunk, but they brought their own booze in? Who does that fall under? That's the question I have. Can I answer that?
I have no idea.
So that's some legal questions that gotta be addressed, because we just open up a can of worms that someone could bring in a homemade whiskey or whatever they wanna do and get drunk in there and walks out and hits someone and kills someone. And who's liable? Well, then you're very well right, underage drinking too. I mean, they don't have to cart them if they bring their own booze in, technically. So, Mayor, please.
Regarding the auction house, so naturally, they're having an auction that day.
We don't have it, that's all. They ain't coming now, so we.
Well,
I don't have to.
they're having an auction that day, whatever, and they're just gonna give it to their employees, well, we know that's not gonna actually be the true thing what's happening over there, so some type of language, office parties, whatever, and I understand, like, a lot of people have office parties at Christmas time, they probably have a little wine or champagne, they cater in from the catering industrial park that now has a new license. You know, as long as we have some kind of language, I mean, shouldn't we have some kind of language, or is this the unwritten rule?
Well, we have.
Mr. Vesta.
I'm sorry. So we have some of these businesses that do that, the employee party.
Right.
I don't necessarily think, like, if a boss brings in beer for all his employees and someone leaves there and they crash up a car, certainly I would think his business could face some liability for it. The auction house, and I just threw that out because I knew that was a possibility. There was some inquiries there about, well, maybe we would, sell for something. I said, well, then you have to have a caterer in there. You guys, they said, well, we weren't gonna pay anyone to sell, we were just gonna do it ourselves. I said, you can't do that. What it comes to is when you have these open rooms and people bring in their own alcohol, it's not an employer giving his employee alcohol or having a party on scene, which is legal under state law. It's finding a way to address these other BYO issues, because if they're considered a catering establishment, there's certain ways to handle it. If they're just considered a commercial business, then there's a different way to handle it, so. I guess, do we want to clarify that BYOB at restaurants and catering establishments is still prohibited? You guys don't want to have that, right?
Well, let me hear some other, to me, I'm totally against. So, Mr. Woods?
Yeah, I was gonna say we could go to, I mean, in one case you have an employee having a party, in the other case you have a business renting, leasing to people, and then bringing in alcohol. So they're two different things. So it could be, given a third-party involvement as opposed to, whether City Hall had a party or AAR had a party or any other of the companies, company card, could be an exclusion written in there. I mean, there's gotta be a simple, if we think about it. I didn't think about that scenario that you brought up, so, but it's a good point. But I'm sure that we're able to carve that out relatively painlessly.
Mr. Jacob, did you have your hand up or no?
I did. I think an easy way to get around all this, and the verbiage could be added easily, if the corporation or the company is doing an event, their insurance policy can be extended for the property damage and or personal injury, but more importantly, it's referred to as host liquor liability. So all you would have to add in there would be requesting a certificate of insurance naming the city of Wooddale as additional insured. And that would automatically put us under their umbrella of their insurance. So for the liability aspect of it, that's your protection there. Now, what you wanted to do license-wise, I don't know if that would, if a company does a Christmas party or a celebration annually or whatever, from a liability aspect, the certificate of insurance with the host liquor liability would cover the city. And I think that's maybe an underlying concern here.
Question for attorney, I guess. Ask that.
Okay.
I know some towns have bring your own.
Right, and so I guess there's two parts to this. One is theoretically under a BYOB, Subway could allow people to bring beer if you allow BYOB. Subway's not looking to do that. I'm just throwing out a restaurant. So you gotta decide if you want that or not. As far as allowing companies to host parties for their employees and serve liquor, I don't have a huge problem with that either, because they have insurance for their company that's probably gonna cover if they provided it to them. What we're having the problem is when the third parties are in other people's property and then bringing their own liquor. And that's the trouble we're running into.
And that's where my problem runs into, that any underage kid can actually bring it, like Mike brought up. 19-year-old could come in and bring it in. You really think that business is going to card those people and say, do you have a liquor, do you have legally to drink this? No, they aren't. You know darn well. That ain't happening. So that's where my problem is. It's the easiest way to sell a underage guy. Someone goes in and buys a 6-pack for him. Then they go to the pizza joint, bring you home. They get drunk or whatever. They have an accident. I understand your point with liability, but again, it's opening up a can of worms for any underage kid to bring booze into an establishment in the city. Unless they card him, but I guarantee you he ain't gonna be carded. I'll tell you that right now. Mayor, Police.
Chief, again, this is I'm sure this is the attorney. Are we gonna have some language that's more stringent than the state code that allows certain things where we don't want happening anymore? Now, again, certain are grandfathered in, but no new business will pop in and I'm gonna get the same baloney I got the first time. Am I gonna get any language to clear that up? Can we, I would imagine we can make it more stringent because we do it with stormwater, so I guess we should be able to do it with liquor license. A business, anybody who has a city business license shouldn't be allowed to have alcohol on the premise at all unless they get a liquor license. I don't care what the state code says.
That's really
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
I can-
I'd like to see it more stringent, just because, you know, I don't know where they came up with that, it's kind of ridiculous.
It's an
I can
attorney
ask him
question.
if there's language, I'm thinking
Can we
of
make it more
a
stringent?
small family-owned business, can they bring alcohol onto their property and give it to their family and friends? I don't know if we can restrict that.
John?
Well, that's
I can ask.
That's a different,
That's a trick question.
that's like an office party, I mean, it's the same thing. I'm talking about somebody who has a business license and they're using the facilities for parties regularly. Well, if you cater, you can't have alcohol, but if you bring your own food, you can have alcohol. That's the state code, so I was told. Can we stop that?
Go ahead.
So I wonder if there could be wording put in there that if a business owner hosts a social event and they provide alcohol to employees or friends of theirs, could that be allowed? But other business license holders that are providing it for, they're not personally bringing it for them, can you ban that? That's what we'd have to get clarification on.
So here's my concern about that. I see your point, but say, we'll use one of a company that's here entertaining.
ABC
now,
company,
well,
whatever.
regardless, whatever company, and has to bring new clients in or something, show them their new facility, and of course you have your dirt, and you have your wine.
Right. But
So
that-
you're looking to eliminate that ploy
Well,
through,
that's an office party.
well, not if you're bringing people in, you're having a party, you're having a third party. So I mean, there's two-way street you can look at this.
Maybe the difference there would be that the owner of the property is physically there providing. It's
Well, no.
a fine line. It's very
going to have to
difficult.
be a legal question. Any other questions on that?
I just want to know if we can stop that from ever happening again. I don't know.
I didn't know there was a problem. Mr. Woods?
Yeah, I thought that's what we were talking about 20 minutes ago when we added party room and commercial property, commercial enterprise. Maybe it could be, there's gotta be a simple way to just add some verbiage to that to limit the area we're talking about and not blanket everything else.
Maybe even something where the property is used exclusively for the rental of space as
Right.
opposed to producing or selling
Right,
items or
right.
whatever it is.
And when I'm using commercial space, as, you know, there's a business model being at work. The tractor company that has new people come and look at their new tractor, their business model isn't renting space to people to serve them drinks.
Right.
So within that, we ought to be able to come up with some simple phraseology to add to that, to solve the issue we're both talking about, all three are talking about.
Mhm.
So that's an attorney question. We gotta try to get something, if that's what the council wants. Mr. Jacob?
I think Art said what I wanted to say, so.
Tony?
How many of those establishments do we have in the city that they rent out to party stores and
I believe only one.
the party, only one?
Well, then the other thing that brings up the point, like he says, someone has a party at a clubhouse. Where's that from?
That's a residential club. One of the local homeowners associations just asked the attorney for, or they just asked us for an opinion on 4 different scenarios, and the city attorney provided them some direction. And because they own it, and if it's a person that is a member of the association and they're renting it out, they're allowed to serve liquor to their guests. But he gave up,
Okay,
yes.
all right, sounds good. Anything else? So, I get, Mr. Jacobs? All right, let me finish this one off the table. So, you pretty much got your direction, what we talked about, get the attorney input on that?
Yes,
Okay.
and then we'll come back with a final ordinance.
Right.
Probably, it'll be next month.
That's fine.
It's gonna take a couple of weeks to
A couple changes.
clarify it all.
All right. Mr. Jacob?
2 questions. Number 1, the times, the 6 AM, have we always had, and that's, do we actually have places serving liquor at 6 AM?
Sure, bowling night.
Yes,
Okay, and
We
that's
do.
never been a problem?
no.
You don't
Okay.
get
Next.
Alderman Sismarski said it before, since we're here, we might as well get it right. We have our community development director here. Are we missing anything here that's gonna make it harder for you guys to bring businesses into the town?
Right.
That you could, I mean, we
Mr.
talked about breweries, wineries, anything else that you guys could think of?
Now you gotta come up here. No, it's been an hour.
Okay.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Just briefly, you guys are thinking along the same lines that we are. I appreciate the comments on the breweries. We've had contact with such establishments, so I think having that option that you discussed earlier about having, one of those types of licenses out there would be very helpful for us, because when we've had those discussions, the key elements are, what's the right zoning district? And then, of course, the second question is, what category, what option is there for a liquor license? So I appreciate those, and that actually would certainly enhance our ability to track those types of businesses. So you're already thinking along the same lines that I would. Appreciate that.
Any other questions? Mayor, please.
Chief, I know you had mentioned about no such liquor license shall be issued to a person who is not a resident of the city. You struck that out of here. I still see it in here. It's not under 5303.
Yes, I'll clarify with the attorney again, but it was my understanding from that applied to individuals that might, as far as other places, it talks about partnerships and corporations and everything. If he thinks it would be right to add, either take that out or add must be a resident or an established business within the city, we could do that too. So I'll have him look at that one more time and see if he thinks there should be any changes to
I
that.
see it, and I'm,
Mayor, please.
sorry. a person who is not a resident shall not be issued, shall be, I know the attorney's speaking this verbiage that is beyond me. I just want to make sure that's, we're not, somebody's got a restaurant, he doesn't live in town, he can't have a liquor license. I'm not understanding that correctly.
And that's what it seems to indicate in there, but the guidance in the past was the fact that further down it talks about if, you know, the co-partnerships and corporations, whatever, that they would still be allowed to do it, because quite honestly, I don't know if we have, or very limited liquor licenses in the city actually belong to any, not individually to any residents of the city, but even companies that the owners live in the city is pretty rare too. So I'll have him look at that one more time and see if he recommends any changes to that, so. And that might have been written back in the 70s when maybe only people that lived in town had liquor licenses, I don't know.
Yeah.
Mayor, please.
And under section 5302, applications for license, under number 10, the statement in case of renewal of a license, whether the applicant made any political contributions to candidates. I know I've seen some communities where it specifically states elected officials are not allowed to take any campaign contributions. Shouldn't that be not allowed? It's kind of a,
Well, as I read that and went through it, you know, any political contributions seemed pretty restrictive, that it doesn't specify whether it's presidential or state. And I added the words to candidates for elected office within the city, and the particulars. I think if it's disclosed, there's still some, you know, if all of a sudden the liquor license application comes through and they made $1,000 donations to everyone that's running for office 2 months before the license was approved, then there's,
Right.
you know, it calls for disclosure. It doesn't say you can't make a contribution.
Mayor, please.
I think it's Downers Grove that has something that says elected officials are not allowed to have those contributions. And personally, I'm okay with that. But again, that's my opinion. It just doesn't look right. Shouldn't be allowed, but again,
This part calls for the disclosure. If council wants the attorney to write something up that would fit the election guidelines that it can't be done, I mean, we can ask him to do that.
maybe it's an attorney question, but I believe Downers Grove, and theirs is pretty stringent, which again, I have no problem with.
Any other thing? Anything else regarding this?
No, I'm sorry, that's it.
So we'll move to the,
Oh, one more.
One more. I'm sorry. There's also the part here, a person that is not a citizen of the United States. I mean, does that fall under the, what the mayor was talking about? Yeah. They have to be a citizen in order to get a liquor license?
Mr. Vesta.
Historically, that's how it was written. If you want to see if it's allowable to take that out of there, we can take it out of there. I don't know what's appropriate for that. I'd have to ask the attorney on that one.
I will tell you one thing, I don't want to remove it,
Okay.
especially when you said US citizen, USA stuff, so,
Oh, no, this, no comment.
okay? Review, that's done. Anything else? Nope, okay. Request for a liquor license. I believe it's Sweetberry, right? Right?
Yes, we have a business in town that's requested to get a liquor license. They previously did have a liquor license. They chose to let it expire in the past. They are looking for a Class R license, which would allow them to sell beer, wine, and liquor on the premises, but only with meals. So that's what they're seeking. The license fee is $2,500. Currently, there's no open licenses, so if you want to do that, we would have to open a license. And I'd bring forward an ordinance to add one more Class R license.
So, let me answer this question. So, everything that we change in the ordinance,
Nothing was changed to this.
well, I just wanna make sure everyone knows, nothing is being changed with this liquor license, except the class. I just want everyone to know that. So whatever changes we just made in this liquor ordinance does not affect this liquor license. They are grandfathered in this time. Okay? Any questions? Want to make a motion?
Make the motion.
I second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor, second for, Sweet Baby Ray's a liquor license for a Class R, you said? Class R?
Yeah, and actually just authorizes the additional Class R license, and then it's up to the liquor commissioner to issue the license to who he feels is appropriate.
So there's a motion, there's a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So I'll take to the neighbor's side. Can you consider future meeting? BDO ordinance, November 12th,
BDA.
BDA. Squad car purchase January, and I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, I'd like to call Public Works Committee to order. Let the minute taker reflect that all the same council members are here. First, can I get a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes October 2nd?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Next, report and recommendation. Approval of partial payment request number 1 to Nettle Creek Nursery for the Potter Street Basin modification in amount not to exceed $65,860.45. That is my motion.
Second.
Questions? I have a question. Are they complete? Mr. York?
The project is in punch list status right now. There's a couple minor modifications they need to make, but other than that, it's not quite done, but this is just a partial payment, so in the final, when all
So
the
we're
work is...
holding money, okay.
Yes.
That's good. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Next, approval of partial payment request number 2 to Martam Construction for the Ward 2 Phase 2 project in an amount not to exceed $264,287.51. That is my motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions?
Question.
Alderman Eugene Wesley?
Is there a punch list on that one too?
Mr. York?
Yes, the punch list items have all been completed except for one item as of this afternoon. So, but there's still, this is another partial payment, and there's about $1 million on the books that are outstanding yet on this project for payment.
Any other questions?
No.
No questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Next, items to be considered at future meetings. Clarkey Mosquito, November 12th. Wastewater SCADA, November 12th. Edgewood Sidewalks, November 12th. Ward 3 Stormwater Project Review, November 12th. Bring your dinner on November 12th. Lincoln Court Streetlight, December 10th. Streetlight Policy, December 10th. And South Treatment Plant Feasibility Study to be determined. Is there anything else that somebody would like to add? No? Questions? Alderman Eugene Wesley?
Can I just ask, when we do projects like this, and this big of a project, you know, like streets and that, is there a way that you could provide us a punch list on what's still left out there to bid? You get it. How hard is it to forward to us?
Mr. York?
Yes, as projects have been completed recently, the people that have requested the punch list items, or the people that are in that ward, have been receiving the punch list.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Prior to starting the finance and administration, I think our minute taker would like to take a breather, so if we could have 5 minutes.
hour discussion. Yeah, okay. You better make a motion and $3, okay.
Okay. I call to order the Finance and Administration Committee meeting. Let the minute taker note that all the same people are here. E. Wesley had left for a moment here, except for E. Wesley. I make motion for the approval of minutes for the Finance Administration Committee regular meeting September 24th, 2015. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Report and recommendation, water and sewer rates. We're going to let,
I make a motion table.
Second.
Take a roll call.
there's a motion to table and a second. Roll call, please.
Alderman Sorrentino?
Yes.
Alderman Catalano?
Yes.
Alderman Jacob?
Yes.
Alderman Woods? Never mind. Alderman Roy Woods?
Yes.
Alderman Roy Wesley?
Yes?
Alderman Eugene Wesley?
Yes.
Alderman Sizmarsky?
No.
That motion passes.
So I have one question.
Alderman E. Wesley.
My question to Brad, where are we tabling this to?
November 12th.
Okay, the follow-up, well, when are we tabling it to?
I'll defer to the city manager.
Mr. Murmas?
Typically, when you guys table something, you tell us when you want to bring it back, or we'll just bring it back at the next committee meeting.
I have a follow-up question.
Alderman E. Wesley.
So we haven't decided when we bring it back. The other thing is, when do we have to have our ordinance in place to raise the water rates if this council decides to? What is the deadline that we have to time? Pet bond draws everything up and all that, and ordinance. When is that we have to have it in place?
Brad.
Well, not to put it back on the 8 of you again, but it depends on when you want the rate to be effective. Whatever date you want the new rate to be effective, the ordinance has to be passed before that date. So if you want it to be January 1st, it would have to be passed by the second council meeting in December. If you want it to be February 1st, it can be passed in January.
But
So
when do we normally do?
the last couple of years, it's been January 1st effective date. So it would have to be, there's one committee in November, the infamous November 12th meeting. There's I believe, one committee meeting in December then, because the second committee meeting would be Christmas Eve. So you're either looking at November 12th or that first meeting in December. If you do November 12th, you have 3 council meetings then to get the ordinance drawn up. If you wait till December, you have 1.
Alderman Woods.
I'll move it to, what did you say, November 12th?
That is correct.
Bring your sleeping bag.
Well, I guess we're going to do the 12th on that. Any other questions? Items to be considered at future meetings, the CIP, January 7th, budget, February 25th. Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.